USGS Earth Explorer is the largest civilian repository of aerial and satellite imagery in the US. It contains most of the historical air photos and satellite imagery in the public domain, including the complete National Agricultural Imagery Program Collection, or NAIP, which has great utility for verifying compliance with the NOP's Native Ecosystems Rule. This video will show how to quickly obtain a time series of NAIP aerial photos taken 10 years apart at a particular location. Earth Explorer is located on the U.S. Geological Survey website at earthexplorer.usgs.gov. Note that you will need to register and log on as a user in order to download imagery and enjoy full site functionality. But don't worry, it's free and registration takes less than a minute. The first step in obtaining imagery is to select your search criteria in the menu on the left. To zoom into the site of interest, you can either use the geocoder menu to type in an address or place name, or simply use the zoom buttons at the top of the map to zoom in so that your site is clearly visible. Here, we'll simply select address, place from the geocoder menu and type in the site address. And once you've typed in the address, you hit show, and it comes back with a georeferenced linked address that you click on, and then it will place a pin at your site of interest. And from there, you simply take your zoom buttons and zoom in on your site. And you want to zoom in so that your site occupies most of the screen. So this is pretty good. This is what we're interested here. And once you've done that, then you hit the button called Use Map, and that creates a image of the area within your screen that the search engine will look for air photos for. And then the next thing you want to do is type in your date of interest. And since we're interested in comparing site conditions today in early 2021 with those of 10 years ago, we'll type in January 1 of 2010 as our starting date and December 31st of 2020 as our end date. The last thing you need to do is open this tab called Data Sets. And that opens the list of collections. And the very first item on this list is aerial imagery. And we want to expand that menu by hitting the little plus sign. And if we scroll about halfway down, we'll see NAIP. And we'll click this little box right next to it to put a check mark in it. Now, a search is not limited to a single collection. You could check most of these boxes in a single search. For example, you might want to look at this collection called Aerial Photos Single Frames, which is the collection where you can find decades of historical air photos going back as far as the 1920s and 30s. Most of the time, you won't need air photos that far back for ecosystem verification purposes, but occasionally these older images can be definitive in situations where you need to determine if an ecosystem may have recovered from some distant disturbance. But here we'll leave that box blank. Now that we've identified the site area, the time frame, and the collection we wish to search for, select the tab in the menu called Results. And that does a quick search of the NAIP collection, and it brings up thumbnails, photo identifications, date taken, and other metadata for all NAIP photos available for our search criteria. And looking at these 6 images that it brought up, we can see that there is one taken on June 6th of 2020 and another taken on August 26th of 2010. So just about 10 years apart and suitable for verifying whether or not a native ecosystem has been present at this site within the last decade. To download any image, you simply click on the download item here with the green arrow, and that will bring up a little box with options for file sizes. And generally speaking, the larger the file size, the greater the resolution, but also the slower the download time, depending on the quality of your internet connection. These are large files, but in most cases, the smaller file size is more than adequate to show land cover clearly. So you would simply select whichever of these options works for you. And that's really all there is to obtaining NAIP photos. And you would download whichever of the photos in the search results are fit your time frame. There's one more thing we need to mention here, and that is it is important to obtain documentation of the date the photo was taken. NAIP photos do not have the date stamped directly on the photo like most older aerial photos do. Instead, the acquisition date appears in the metadata for the photo, such as here in the little next to the thumbnail. So you could either write down the acquisition date that appears next to the photo you've downloaded, or for a more official looking documentation, you can print a whole metadata file for this photo by clicking on the Show Metadata and Browse icon, and that loads the metadata, and then you hit Open New Window, and it'll bring the metadata up along with the thumbnail of the photo into a nice table in a new window. And from there, all you need to do is use your browser's print function to create a PDF file or a text file of this metadata table, which includes the acquisition date right here in the center of the table. Earth Explorer has a variety of other useful collections and features, including a lot of satellite imagery, which could be useful for organic certification purposes. And these are accessed through the same data sets menu and retrieved using the same steps we've just seen in this video. And you can get further instruction about this on YouTube, as the USGS has uploaded several very helpful videos on just basic instruction of working with it. You can learn about how different data sets were created and search criteria, working with results, and so forth. So these are all worth looking at. They're short videos if you care to learn more about this application.